In this video, I'll be doing lesson 5.7, which is a continuation of chapter 5 on quadratic equations. So our lesson targets for today is first to learn to solve quadratic equations in perfect square form and to express them as both the exact and the approximate form. And then we're going to learn how to determine how many solutions there are for quadratic equations when they are written in the perfect square form. So first off, to kind of introduce this is just to give you guys a scenario. And then in this scenario, we're going to just add more information to the diagram so that we can eventually solve for it. So this says Ernie is going to install a square hot tub in his backyard. He plans to add a 3-foot wide deck on the 2 adjacent side of the hot tub, as you can see in the diagram. So here are the adjacent side and the hot tub. And then it says if Ernie's backyard, which is also a square, has 169 square feet of space, what is the largest hot tub he can order? So key information here is that we know that the hot tub itself is a square. The backyard is also a square. And some numerical information we have is that it's 169 square feet, while the deck is 3 foot wide on both ends. So to fill some things in, just to make it nice and easy to look at, we don't know what the size of the hot tub is because eventually we're going to need to know that. But because our hot tub is a square, we know that the other side should be the exact same length. And in total, this whole entire thing that we have in our diagram should equal to 169. And then we have feet squared, or you call it square feet. So in the next page, we are going to actually solve for that problem. And as you can see, I already put in the diagram and all the additions that we have made here. So in terms of how can we solve for this, how large can his bathtub possibly be? I started out with the formula for area of a square. So the formula for area of a square is length times width, or some people call it like side times side or side squared. So these are common ways to look at it, but I just kind of went with the simplest format. And then we're going to take that information and then we are going to fill it out. So what we do know, we technically do know the length and the width. And then we also know the area of our square. So we don't know what the area of the hot tub is. So might as well look at the area of the whole entire backyard, which is also a square. So the area of our square here is 169 feet squared. And then what about the length and what about the width? So because we're doing the length and the width, we're going to do the whole entire length of the backyard and also the whole entire width of the backyard, which, as you know, if you want to find the whole entire length, you just got to add the two values together, and same with the width. So it's kind of like if the hot tub was 4 feet, and then our deck was 3 feet, you got to just add those two values together to get a total of 7 feet. So that's just my quick example. But to write this out, we know our length is x plus 3 times our width to be another x plus 3 should equal to 169 square feet. So that's just based off of our formula. So notice that x plus 3 is repeated twice, and when something's repeated twice, you can use the square instead of writing it twice. So notice that with this square, if we want to solve for a problem like so with the square in it, you have to always reverse it. And the only way to reverse a square is to square root. So our goal now is just to simply solve for x. Once we solve for x, we can figure out how long that hot tub is. And then that will tell us how large the bathtub is. So now what we've learned Monday/Tuesday is that to get rid of a square, you can square root both sides. And then this cancels. And because the 3 is within the parentheses, you don't have to get rid of the 3 first. Just think of it as one entity, and therefore you can deal with the square right now. So we have x plus 3 equals the square root of 169, which is both the positive and negative form of 13. Okay. And I taught you also about this whole idea of positive and negative. So after we get to that part, what you want to do next is to clean up all the values that is in the way of x. So -3 is what you want to do on both sides to make sure that x is left alone. And then if I were to rewrite this, I still have x, and I have this whole plus minus 13 minus 3. And that really doesn't look like anything that you guys are aware of before. Like usually they're whole numbers, usually they're decimal numbers, but this is actually not done because this can actually be split up into two numbers. So our first number, our first value is going to come from positive 13 minus 3. And then our second value is actually going to come from negative 13 minus 3. So if I were to solve for that, that equals to 10. And if I were to solve for the second one, that's going to give me -13. So one of the two, yes, we have two solutions currently for this equation, but not both of the equations actually is a solution. Actually, one of them is only the solution, and the solution here is going to be the positive 10. The -13 doesn't make sense in this case because we're looking for a length and a width. And length and width can never be negative because you can't have a negative width, you can't have a negative length, only positive in this case. So here we only technically have one actual solution, even though it came out with two. So we have 10 by 10. Therefore, our total size of our hot tub is 100 square feet. Okay, and that's another way you can write it. You can write square feet or you can put feet squared, and they're exactly the same. All right, so in the next problem, you guys are going to do a similar problem, and then I'm gonna have you guys set it up first, and then you can pause this video, and once you are done, then replay the video so that you can grab all the answers from it. So just a quick explanation. We have x plus 2 on both sides as the length and the width, and this area of this square is 64, which could be written as x plus 2 squared equals to 64. And then my goal is to get x by itself. And this one just says find the length of the hot tub. So find both the dimensions of the hot tub. And square root both sides. And when I square root both sides, we have some things that cancel out like so. And I'll get x plus 2 equals positive and negative 64. Oh, not 64. I mean 8. Sorry. And then I'm going to move the 2 over by subtracting. And then I'm going to rewrite my problem. So I have x equals positive and negative 8 minus 2. But again, we can actually split this up by the negative and by the positive so that we can have two solutions here. So positive, make it 6, and then a negative will make it a -10. But which solutions really work? It should be the positive 6. So this is technically a 6 by 6 hot tub. And as you know, the largest hot tub you can get here is 36 because it's a 6 by 6. And we also have one actual solution here and not two. Okay, so this is just how we can use these types of problems. And that's just basically how it's commonly used. But this is also called a quadratic equation. So anything with a square, usually with an x and a square on it, you'll see that it's a quadratic equation, which will turn into a parabola shape. All right, so go ahead and start trying to solve for this problem. It was similar to the past two problems that we have done. So again, you can pause the video and I will give the solutions after. Okay, so in this, I'm going to square root both sides. I get x minus 1 equals positive -2. Add 1 on both sides. I get x equals positive -2 plus 1, and then I have two solutions. So notice how quickly I have done this, and I mean, it could be the same for you guys if you guys kind of understand how to square root and move things around. So positive 2 plus 1, and negative 2 plus 1. And these are my two solutions. So here I actually have two solutions because I am not restricted to length and width. There's no restrictions at all here in this case, but those are my final answers. Okay. So again, this format that we have going on right now is called perfect square form. It's also a quadratic equation, which will, if you put all of these in a graphing calculator, they will graph into this shape called a parabola. These are called perfect square form is because if you take these and use algebra tiles, this side of the equation will make a perfect square. So I'm going to show you what that looks like on this page right here. So notice that this whole x minus 3 squared, if you were to put them as algebra tiles, they just create this nice square right here with all the same sides. And on the right side of the equation, I just made more algebra tiles. Even though that's not a square, this is not really considered in this whole idea of perfect square form. But if you were to draw tiles for this diagram, this is how the tiles would look like. Okay, so moving on, what we're going to do is just solve for that problem, and hopefully this is super easy from now. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to square root both sides, which should reach all the way to the 2. And then I should get this to cancel. I get x minus 3 equals positive or negative, and then I have to square root 12. But some of you guys probably already noticed that you cannot square root 12. It doesn't give you a clean answer. It actually gives you a decimal. So what I'm going to do, because I don't want to deal with decimals right now, is I'm going to leave it as the square root of 12. And then I'm going to just continue by finishing off my equation. So I'm going to add 3 on both sides, and I'm going to put a plus 3 outside of the square root because it does not belong together. These are two separate numbers or styles of numbers. So like if you take a fraction, you can't take a fraction and add it to a whole number technically because they're two separate styles. So it's kind of the same here, same thing here. You can't take a square root and then add it to a whole number. It doesn't really work like that. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite the problem so it looks a little bit nicer. And then I'm going to split it up into two problems, and I'm going to show you how to work with those two problems. So our first, I guess, answer you can say is the positive version of the square root of 12 plus 3. And then we have a second answer to be the negative version of square root of 12 plus 3. Okay, so the answers that I have currently, the ones right here, these are what we call my exact answers. So I'm going to just box this up. This here is my exact answer because I have not put it in the calculator and get some decimal answers. So once you put it in the calculator, that's when you call it the approximate answer because then you're rounding at that point. So I'm going to throw these into the calculator so you guys can see. And then let me clear this. Okay, so what I would do is I'm going to do the square root of 12 plus 3. Oh no. So notice that the 3 is under the square root. This is not okay. So let me delete. Oh crap. Let me do it again. The square root of 12. And then I'm going to get out of the square root by pressing the side button and then do a plus 3. So notice the difference between those two. I'm going to press enter, and that is my answer for that problem. So about 6.46. So instead of the equal symbol, because this is approximate, I'm going to put approximately for both of those. And I'm going to go 6.46. And the answer for this one is actually negative 0.46, which I've calculated previously. So this is my approximate answer. Okay, and then I'll box this one up like so. So these are two separate types of answers. It's not like we have 4 answers now though. We still only have 2 answers, except now we know what an approximate answer looks like and what an exact answer looks like. Okay, so let me do that one more time. And this is the last problem that I'm going to do with you guys. And the problem that I'm leaving you to, you guys are going to attempt it on your own. But the first thing I'm going to do is, again, square root both sides as usual. So things can cancel. We have 2x minus 3 equals positive, negative, and 49 works out nicely. So we just have 7. So we might not have an exact and an approximate answer here. But notice that the next step here is that x is not by itself because of this negative 3 and also the 2, but I have to get rid of the 3 first. Okay, so that cancels. I'm going to rewrite everything. And as you are rewriting everything, you can just leave everything alone till the very end and then start simplifying. So notice that I didn't deal with the positive or negative yet, and I'm going to just deal with it at the very end. So here, this is pretty much cleaned up a lot more. And then my final answer technically are these two answers within this part. And then I'm going to split them up. So my first answer should be the positive form of 7 and then plus 3 divided by 2. And that's going to give me an answer. And my second answer is going to be the negative form of 7 plus 3 divided by 2. So notice that the positive and negative only applies to the number that it is in front of, and the positive and negative is in front of the 7, so that's only thing that you apply it to. So if I were to simplify everything, I'm going to deal with the top value first for both of the problems, then I'll divide by 2. So 7 plus 3 is 10 divided by 2, which is 5 as one solution. And then negative 7 plus 3 is negative 4 divided by 2. Oops, sorry, is equal to negative 2. So that's my other solution. So again here, no limitations. 2 is the numbers of solutions that I have. Okay, so if you need to pause this and look at everything that I've written here, do so. And then you guys are going to work on this very last problem on your own. Once you are done with this problem, I'm going to check through it and see if you are okay. And once you are, you guys are good to go, and you are free to leave for the day. But thank you for watching.